Right, well, the house build goes on, and while it goes on, other things seem to happen. One of them is, well, you can't see it here actually. One of them is the cars get covered in dust. Look at this, look. This side of the car is covered in dust, which actually it was terrible on the roof. I've cleaned part of it. But the other thing that happens is that the cars get ignored, and they go wrong. Why is this? I know it is the answer that you don't use the cars and they go wrong. Anyway, I came out the other day, a few days ago, and I tried to start the Dodge up, and that wouldn't start, so I assumed the battery was flat, put it on charge. Didn't seem to do much good. Then I had a problem with the mower, and I couldn't seem to charge the battery. It was flat, the mower wouldn't start, and the battery would not charge up. So I decided that I had two dead batteries. So I called my friend, the auto electrician, and he sorted it out. We had a number of problems. First of all, the Dodge. Right. The problem with the Dodge was not actually the battery, it was the starter button. Well, not this one, because this is a new one. So actually, the starter button was just not working. So when I had turned the ignition on and tried starting it, it was dead. Charged the battery. After a day or two, it was still dead. So, being a little bit of an idiot, I assumed there was a problem with the battery, but actually it was the starter button. So, after fitting a new starter button, let's try it. Turn the ignition on, pull the choke, choke out, and see what happens. There we are. And it starts. Very slowly, of course. That starts. Choke in. Whoops, that's dead. Well, that's cold. Anyway, that runs now. So that was the problem with the Dodge. But the Dodge is okay. It's had an MOT certificate a few months ago. There was nothing wrong with it, and I've had it running around a bit, and I was going to be taking it on the classic London to Brighton classic car run, which is in a few weeks' time, or it was, but now that's been cancelled. So this poor car, the only thing it's got to look forward to for anything official is next September, when we go on the a big do up north where all these cars of this vintage and this type are up there. So we'll see what happens. But when the weather dries out again, hopefully, and we haven't got all this health business restrictions, we'll have it out for a drive. Anyway, that's the Dodge. So the Dodge is okay. It's the engine runs lovely, no problem at all now. But it's got a new starter button. That's good. So let's see what happened with the mower, though. Well, the mower was a mixture of problems, but basically one, and that was that my battery charger was no good. So in actual fact, the battery charger was no good, and it wasn't charging the battery, but the battery was flat because this mower was not charging. The flywheel, which charges the battery, was corroded, and had to take some of the engine apart to get at it. But after cleaning it all up, we got it working, and it's charging fully, and this now starts. So we'll try it, and then we'll have a look, because we had another problem. So let's see what happens. Pull the choke out here. There we go. So that's running now. But the problem was that then discovered that I couldn't use the blades because I couldn't turn them on. These switches, both of them actually, had corroded up inside, probably after about 20 years of being ignored. And they had to be taken apart. But anyway, they're working now, so the mower is all working. Pleased about that. And then we've got the Mercedes. Now, we had a disaster, or I had a disaster with that yesterday. I decided to clean it. So I drove it out onto the site. I'll show you. Right, so I drove it up over here. You can see some marks on the ground where I drove it. And I drove it round over here, stopped here, got the hose. I wanted to hose off all the dust and dirt, which I did, and it looked quite nice. Then I decided to drive it back. As I drove it round, front wheel here went down in this little hole that I hadn't noticed, and the tyre ripped against the side of that block and burst the tyre. So, what happened? I managed to get it over here before the tyre fizzled out of air completely, and put on the spare. Well, and there's the new tyre I had to buy this morning. So, a new tyre, because I went and washed the car. But other than that, the car is, actually, the car's fine. But it's good to have an older car where you do have a spare wheel. This wheel fits in here, of course, which I've got to put back in a bit. But of course, on some of the modern cars, even like my Crossfire, they don't have spares, so you're in trouble. Anyway, this car has had an MOT, and it's running really nice. Had a service. It had a full service, and a few bits and pieces that we did to it. I had to have, usual thing, I had to have some brake hoses, corroded brake pipes rather, replaced, and a few bits and pieces like that. Usual things that are caused by it not being used. But I cleaned it up yesterday, and it's looking really great. Drives nice. I had it out this morning to collect that spare wheel, the new spare, and it's driving lovely, absolutely lovely. Not a problem with it at all that I'm aware of, so I'm really pleased with that. So those two cars were causing me issues now and not really going anywhere. Dodge is fine, drives lovely, starts now, drive it out, and it's beautiful. Nowhere to go, that's the trouble. Let's see what else we got. Right, so we got the Aventime, a bit dirty, needs a clean, which is why I've brought it out here to give it a clean. Now this has had a full service. The chap I bought it off in Scotland, he came down about 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe a bit longer anyway. He gave it a full service, and everything else on it is good, I hope. Drives beautiful as usual. It's a bit dirty, but I have cleaned it out. A bit filthy inside now. I've had a dog in here. Trouble is, I've been so busy with the build that I haven't actually cleaned the cars. And of course this has been through the winter period when everything's been wet and horrible. But this is sitting out here now waiting for a clean in the next, either today or tomorrow. This will be cleaned. You can see the cleaning wax there. I was getting ready to do a few cars. So I've had this Amy out, the little Ami, and this one's running well as well. This had, this was an old car. I had a car that was due for an MOT, and I took this down to the garage, forgetting that I had already MOT'd it, and the car that was supposed to be MOT'd was actually the Aventime, I think. So I had to go back and change cars. Anyway, this one's again no problem with it at all. Passed its test, and everything on it is really fine, except that it's absolutely covered in dust, needs a clean. Crossfire, sitting here, filthy again. I washed that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there again, it's got covered in dust. It was out driving around a little bit, and that's just had an MOT a couple of days ago, and it had a few advisories on it. One is there's some corrosion, a small amount of corrosion on some of the discs. Well, that's probably just from sitting around. There's a slight bit of, well, they say hardly any movement. They show some wear in one of the bushes, suspension bushes, but virtually no movement, so it really isn't a problem. There's a bee there, look. And what else was there? It's according to the MOT, there's some. It's low on 2 of the front tires. Now I've looked at them, and I don't know. I'm not the testing guy, but they don't seem bad to me. But they're on the verge of having to be replaced. I think the 2 front tires, the 2 back tires, which are slightly bigger, of course, because it's got 19s on the back and 18s on the front. These were fairly new. Bought these. See, they seem the same depth. I don't really understand it, but I suppose getting it up on a ramp, you see something that you don't see on the ground, perhaps. Anyway, that's just dirty and fine, but drives and starts lovely. 2CV, absolutely beautiful. I had a bit of a clean up on it, and it's due for another one, but that's about all I've been doing on it. Absolutely no problems, this car. Really, really nice. You can see I've been out in it recently. I left the window open. So we'll close that. Yeah, that's a really nice looking car now. And my Jag is sitting out the front of the construction site, and that's also good. Right, well there we are. I cleaned this about 2 weeks ago. And look at it, filthy. It's sitting up here. Absolutely filthy. All the dust where it rained, and the dust is on it from the building site, which is coming along. But other than that, this car is absolutely beautiful. Right, so all the cars are fine, but they're not being used, and I learned a lesson again. I learned it a few years ago, and that is when you don't use cars, they go wrong. So I tried to use them all the time, but now I haven't been using them hardly at all, really, mainly because of that construction, which is taking up all my time, and I'm working virtually every day. And even with the problems that we've got at the moment worldwide, see there's a bricklayer over there working, and this is on a weekend. And so we've managed to keep working in one way or another all the time. So I haven't been spending time with the cars at all. And then, of course, we've got this sort of lockdown business, and really, we're not in a position to just go joyriding around and gallivanting around, so the cars are not being used at all. And yet, of course, 2 things happen to them. They get dusty, and they go wrong, because inactivity is no good for a car. But of course, I'm fairly fortunate in as much that I can actually start them up and drive them around a certain amount on my land, which at least moves them about, let them run for a bit, get the oil moving and circulating and lubricating things, have the engine run for 10-15 minutes, and the tires are in different positions when they're parked, so all that sort of stuff is good. So I'm not really complaining, but I must say that I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about them, as my mind is preoccupied with this building. In fact, I spend more time on driving and filling up fuel into that ATV than I am in the cars. And while fuel is so cheap at the moment, I'm not even taking advantage of it by buying any, so I've hardly put any fuel in, which is another problem, because the cars are sitting for months on end now with the same fuel in them, and so I'm sort of driving them a bit, clear the carburetor and topping them up a little bit as well. So whether that's any good or the right thing to do, I don't know, but it seems kind of logical to me. Anyway, that's it for the cars at the moment. Say there's not a lot wrong with any of them, just minor annoying things with those ones that weren't being used, especially the Dodge. That button really annoyed me because I suppose I do use it and start it, but anyway, that's it. So back to the build.